So, man, I don't know. Here we are on my couch. This is my actual couch.
It's very comfy.
I am Nikki from MindSpark Research International, user research boutique agency based in Paris doing international stuff. I have my friend Sheila here with me. She is a friend. She is also an American in Paris, like myself.
Yes.
And she is a business coach specializing in agile, lean, and product vision.
This is true.
Which sounds really snazzy.
All the buzzwords.
I have no idea what product vision means, but it sounds pretty awesome.
It's kind of like Cyclops, but with products and seeing where you're going with them. Like Cyclops with
It's like
laser.
homing in.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so here we are going to talk about. So another thing that I think is really interesting about your profile is the fact that you've been doing it for so long and you're like me, an American in Paris, which means that you have lots of experience with all kinds of different companies, but as well the sort of like a European look, and then as well like you've seen how it looks elsewhere, either because you've been working at companies here who have been doing international stuff or from the time before you moved to Paris. So do you see any like cultural attachments to Agile that are different, like in Paris, for example, or just in Europe or anything like that?
I think it's super interesting because, yes, while honestly Agile was really like the seed of it started in Japan with Toyota, with actually Lean, which is in the family of Agile. Mm-hmm. Lean and Agile, there's a lot of overlap. It then was very quickly adopted by the Americans. In fact, actually going back, and what I really suggest for people to check out is something called the Agile Manifesto. Mm-hmm. So it's a 2-page document online, literally takes maybe 2 minutes to read. Mm-hmm. And it was a consortium of different project managers, developers who got together and wrote this that said, this is what we believe in. So this was, I think, in the late 90s. And so it's online, so you just Google Agile Manifesto. And it talks about the principles of Agile. And the majority of those people were American.
Okay.
So there was, I think, 2 Europeans. So I think that's why like America's seen as the hotbed. So I knew about Agile when I was in the US. I worked in Agile. I was working for the government in higher learning. And then I came here, and yes, I did feel that the French were more quote unquote behind. But now it's like wildfire. They're really catching on to, okay, well, because, okay, and now I'm going to talk into stereotypes. I love working with French, let's be very clear. But the French can be, for better or for worse, overthinkers. Mm-hmm. So on one hand, like, they can really like fully think through a problem and like really come up with a good solution, but also sometimes it can take longer. So smaller cycles can make it hard. But what I'm now seeing is they're now taking Agile and really adapting it to that, because one big benefit of Agile, especially if you use some of the frameworks, because there's many different frameworks you can use, called like Scrum, which creates a cadence of, they're called sprints, where you average out how much work you can do. And actually by doing shorter iterations, you can better plan and better project. So for in America, I saw them more, I think, more gravitating to like the people part of it, and like, because that was a big thing we needed in America and we still need, is treating our employees great. And like, you know, where I find the French are overall sensitive to the needs of their employees, where the French are more like, their part of Agile is more of like, oh wow, this can help us plan actually by being more flexible. So that gives you a bit of the nuance that I'm now seeing. But they're definitely, I think the French are definitely, though Agile's been in France for a long time, they're only really now like tackling it.
Yeah. I think that makes sense for our work too, because people always ask like, why did you decide to start the company that you did in France? And I was like, I didn't. It was out of necessity. I thought I was going to be broke, so I started a company. And I really always thought that I was just going to do that until I got another job. And what ended up happening is, of course, the company like grew and has been growing since its start. And I feel like one of the reasons for that is because I have that like North American mentality, and I am used to doing things faster. And so a lot of American clients who are trying to do stuff either in Europe or in France or even elsewhere, like in Asia, are looking for partners that can do things that fast as well. And it's really hard for them to find French partners that are willing to think through things really quickly. Whereas on the flip side, when I've done work with French clients, for example, I can produce a document for them, a report for them that's 80 slides long. And they're like, yes, but where is the thinking? And I'm like, this document is so like, and an American client would be like, I cannot make use of an 80 slide document. I need like 10 slides. I just need you to tell me what to do.
Right.
So I can definitely concur with what you're saying, that like there's a lot of like, they want to really make sure that like all the details have been considered and all the different
100%.
aspects of the problem have been addressed.
And I think they're now understanding that not that it's completely on the way out, because I think there's definitely a happy medium between the two. And that's why now they're really like, okay, well, maybe we need to wake up and do this a little faster. And is there a way we can still do it methodological? That word always messes me up, and I'm a coach. So I have to say it a million times. But so well thought out, but faster.
Yeah.
And that's what I really like about Agile. You don't do Agile with simple systems. So Agile is made for complex systems. It's made to simplify and give a rhythm and start answering the unknown. And that's what they're seeking.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because I agree that I think the French clients that we've been working with have been starting to also recognize that they need to move faster in certain cases. I think one of the things is that there's always going to be a case for the really detail-oriented, well-thought-out thing, but it's not necessary for every problem that they're trying to solve, which I think to me seems to be one of the major learnings that they're going through right now. Is like, yes, sometimes we need to do all of this stuff in a lot of depth, but actually other times we can do with like a lighter touch, exploration or thought process or whatever. So my other question for you then is, where do you think it's going to go next?
That's a very good question. Honestly, like I said, I'm a strong believer Agile, even if we start calling it something else or whatever.
What were we talking about the other day? Like, call it the brown paper bag
paper method. I've been actually playing around with the word adapt, because it's on it. It just comes down to that. And like, I'm a bit, I hate to say a fatalist, but I'm a bit like a little bit of a fatalist in a way that I think that in 100 to 200 years, if we're not all underwater, everybody has to be agile in some way. Like, with technology expanding and like rapidly getting faster and faster, and with consumers getting hungrier and hungrier, like we can't just be like, oh well, being more reactive didn't work. Let's go back to
let's be less reactive now.
So actually I see it increasing. I see it actually moving more and more towards continuous development, which already like Facebook has been and everything like that. So also I sometimes laugh when people are like, well, don't you think like Agile, like what's the proof that Agile works? I'm like, do you think Facebook doesn't do like user testing, small iterations? They do something crazy like, I'm gonna like throw out a number that I don't even know, so hashtag this was not research, but it's like, I don't know, 100 times a day or 200 or whatever, but they're constantly releasing. And partially I know that there's a lot of security checks there, but they also, from what I understand, let their developers test things and stuff like that, which is also very much about Agile and empowerment. So honestly, I think it's more and more going even more rapid, more empowerment of, especially now, the economy of developers, where developers are really like, once a developer works in Agile, there's some old school ones and there's some people that it's hard for them, the Agile environment. It really is. Like, it can be very demanding, and some people would like to just stay to what they do. But more and more, I see developers arriving that want to be respected and empowered in that way. And I think I just see it more and more rapidly getting faster and more reactive. And yeah. And I would even say bringing customers into the offices even more. Like, I don't see it going backwards, that's for sure, whether we call it Agile or whatever.
So actually, to go back to a point that you were making before about the mindset, what would you recommend to maybe somebody's listening to this or watching it somewhere and they're like, wow, this is exactly what we've been missing. Like, I think we need to incorporate Agile into our company, like, structure. What would you recommend that they do or consider?
So that's a really good question. I was recently inspired. I saw a talk. It was like an Agile breakfast at this place called Octo. And this person, I forgot their name. I feel bad. They might have been quoting someone anyway. But anyway, who said that Agile is made for complex systems, and can be complex. Like you can create, there's methodologies of Agile such as SAFe that is quite heavy, but necessary in some cases. And just to plop that on top of what you're doing just creates more complication. So my number one suggestion for anybody like exploring, like, okay, I want to start putting validated learning and empowerment into my company culture is by starting with a ceremony. So like a meeting called a retrospective. So a retrospective is where, and it can be done on many different levels. It can be done with all the team. It can be done with, let's say if you just want to talk about development stuff, just the developers. It depends on what level you want to, but you just get together. There's many different formats. Definitely you can look online. There's many different ones, but a very common one is what's going well, what could be improved, and do I have any questions? And so people brainstorm. So like I said, Agile is all about everybody has a even voice, so everybody brainstorms on their own and then they voice their opinion and then you vote together how to move together. So why a retrospective could be great for instilling Agile is like, okay, you get together and you're like, look, we're going to start this exploring Agile before we start plopping this big structure on you with all these meetings and the we get together, we get your feedback, and what's like the first thing we can do? So one thing I haven't talked about, I kind of hinted with the small iterations, but Agile is a lot about taking small steps. So if you just start with this one meeting and you decide one or two things, which could be, okay, we're going to start talking to our customers one-on-one once a month. We're going to bring one into the office. And that's what we decide as a team to do. We try it, and then 2 weeks later, you have another retrospective. Did that go well? Did it not? So I would suggest implicate your team, get people excited, and model. It definitely in management has to model. It's not like, oh great, they're going to be empowered, they're going to do all the work. No, like the managers have to get dirty. A great quote I like is, everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change themselves. It can be a rough transformation in the beginning, and everybody has to go with it. So yeah.
One of the things that I heard in this women's leadership retreat thing that I was on recently was that one of the things that they do internally is they do stop, start, continue.
Yeah, that's another form of retrospective. Yeah, you should explain it, because
I mean, the explanation that we got was just that they do a meeting, and I can't remember, I think it's monthly she said they do. The woman that I'm speaking to, I think she manages quite a big team, and so I think she does monthly reviews with each of her people. I think in this case she tends to do them one-on-one, and then she just has them prepare for the meeting. What should I stop doing? What should I start doing? And what should I continue doing? And it kind of helps them to like more quickly evaluate the problem areas that people are experiencing. So these are the things I should stop doing. Things that they should start doing could be either things that they are interested in, which helps the management also to empower them more, or it could also be like, well, I tried this and it didn't work, so I guess I need to start doing this other thing. So there's sort of like two aspects of it, and then the continue is like, what am I doing that is working? So leave it alone, keep on the same path, and kind of just like push forward.
Which is important, because I think sometimes we forget when we're in the cycle of like learning and changing that we're like, oh, we're just gonna change everything all at the same time.
Yeah. Some things were working though.
Yeah, no, it's good. And it also, like, I think it's what I push people when they start doing these retrospectives and they start changing things in their company, is also let time happen. Like, I would say at minimum once a month have a retrospective. I honestly push for every 2 weeks. Sometimes people are like, what do I have to say every 2 weeks? Trust me, get everybody in a room. Usually when you have nothing to say is when you have a lot to say. But still let a couple cycles go through before you like completely change everything. Give it a good... Agile is not fast, it's smart.
Yeah.
Well,
if it's done right. if it's done right.
Yeah.
I keep picturing in my head the analogy, you know how it's like, I'm gonna get this wrong. It's something like you know that there's the race with the rabbit and the turtle.
Oh yeah.
Who wins that race? It's the turtle, right?
Yeah.
But in my head, I'm like, because I guess the reason is that the turtle takes continuous steps, where like the rabbit like sprints and then gets tired and has to take a break. Right. So in my mind, I'm like, I feel like Agile is like the turtle, the bunny on the turtle's back, because like actually you're going fast, but taking small steps.
100%.
And sometimes you are sprinting, and that sprint is important. It's actually important to take the pause at the end of the sprint, and it's valuable.
It's so important.
I'm getting, that's me. I like to make nonsense out of perfectly good analogies.
I mean, honestly, like, I don't think you're far off on that because, well, first of all, and to quote the Bible of Agile, the Agile Manifesto, it says it has to be a maintainable rhythm. 100%.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're being reactive. So that's the bunny, reactive.
Yeah.
The turtle
is the sustainable.
It has to be a sustainable.
Yeah.
It has to be, because otherwise you're just burning yourself. Otherwise, what happens often in companies is they do, so waterfall is like the arch villain of Agile. So it's like waiting a long time and then doing it. But sometimes people do Agile, but they're just doing little waterfalls. So they're like in their little tunnel, they work really hard, and then they just release, they never get feedback, and then they do it again.
Yeah.
So beware of that.
Yeah.
Fake Agile.
Fake Agile is real.
Yeah.
No, that's very confusing.
Yeah.
Fake Agile is real. So then I guess the other question for you would be, what about smaller companies? So like my company is obviously pretty small, and we have to do things at a quick pace, but normally that pace is like dictated by outside forces, right? So it's like clients being like, we need this done in 2 weeks, and we're like, okay, how can we get it done? But for us internally, in terms of like growing, and we're not necessarily developing a product, so I know it's a bit different, but in a way we are, because we are the product and our services are the product that we're offering, and we're always trying to work on those things. But yeah, so when I hear you talk about like retrospectives, I'm sitting here thinking like, how can I implement this into my team? And